I still remember the exact moment I realized everything was falling apart. It was late one Tuesday evening when I came home from work, expecting my usual warm greeting. Instead, I felt an immediate knot tighten in my stomach. Something was off. The house was eerily quiet, no sign of my wife Lisa or anyone else. I called out her name, my voice echoing off the empty walls. No answer. I walked into the bedroom and froze. There on the bed was her phone, face down but with an open message thread visible. My heart started pounding. I hesitated, then moved closer. My fingertips trembled as I turned the screen slightly. There was a message from Jake, my best friend, that made my blood run cold. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've missed you too much." I stared at it for what felt like an eternity. My mind spun with questions, but I already knew what I was seeing. Her name was right there, her last interaction with Jake. The guy I trusted most besides my own brother was a confession. She was cheating. I couldn't process it at first. It was like a punch to the gut, the kind that leaves you winded and dizzy, but I knew. I knew deep down that I had missed the signs. That little gut feeling I pushed aside for months. The late nights she'd come home smelling like perfume I didn't recognize, the secretive texts she'd hide when she thought I wasn't looking. Now it all clicked into place. Every suspicion, every uneasy feeling had been right. I closed her phone slowly, my palms slick with sweat and my mind raced. How could I have missed it? How could I have trusted her? Just last week I'd proposed, got down on one knee in front of our friends and family, feeling like the luckiest guy alive. And now I was standing in a house that felt more like a prison than a home. I sat on the edge of the bed, my skin crawling. My throat thickened. I wanted to scream, to tear everything apart, but I kept my composure, barely. I didn't want her to see how much she'd broken me, not yet. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. The worst part was, I hadn't even known there was more. Just as I was gripping her phone, my eyes caught a glimpse of something else, an open envelope on the nightstand. It was from my brother, Mark. My heart skipped a beat. I hesitated, then grabbed it, feeling like I might be sick. Inside was a letter, hastily written but painfully clear. "Sorry I couldn't tell you guys, but I've been seeing Lisa too. It's been going on for months. I love her and I hope you can understand." My stomach dropped. Not only was Lisa cheating on me with Jake, but my own brother, Mark, was involved. The pieces clicked. This was a tangled web of lies, betrayal, and deception I'd never imagined. I felt a fire ignite in my chest, a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I closed the letter slowly, my fists clenched so tight my knuckles turned white. I realized I was at a crossroads. I could break down, or I could turn this chaos into something else. Something that would make them regret ever crossing me. The plan was already forming. I would make sure they knew exactly what they'd done. I'd make sure they paid. But first, I had to get out of the house, gather evidence, and prepare myself mentally. I needed everything in my favor. I couldn't just confront them blindly. I had to be smart. I had to be ruthless. As I stood up, I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. The house echoed with silence, but I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I knew the game was about to change forever, and I was ready for it. I looked around the room one last time, then grabbed my coat. I had a long night ahead, and I wasn't going down without a fight. The betrayal was just the beginning. I spent the next couple of days walking around in a fog, trying to piece everything together. Every moment I wasn't working or with the few friends I could trust, I was planning. I couldn't just confront them blindly. No, I needed damning evidence. Something tangible that would hit them where it hurt and leave no room for denial. The first thing I did was go through her phone again. I knew I couldn't leave that as my only source, but it was a start. I scrolled through texts, calls, anything that looked suspicious. I found more messages between Lisa and Jake, flirty, suggestive, downright intimate. But what really caught my eye was a scheduled meeting on her calendar. A lunch date supposedly with one of her, the location. A quiet downtown. I remembered the day. I'd been at work, busy with a meeting, completely unaware she was out with Jake. I'd never suspected that Jake, my best friend, could turn into a player in this whole mess. I'd always thought of him as the guy who'd have my back no matter what. Guess I was wrong. I also decided to check her social media accounts. I didn't usually do that, but something told me I'd find more than I bargained for. Sure enough, There were recent photos of Lisa and Jake at that, smiling, touching, acting like they were the only two people in the world. Heartbreaking, really. Knowing she'd been lying to me, to everyone, I felt my stomach twist. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we had right after I had just made her my wife? That damn ring on her finger was just a symbol now, a mockery of what we'd shared. I clenched my fists, feeling my nails dig into my palms. I wanted to destroy everything, her, Jake. The whole damn house if I could. But I knew revenge wasn't about destruction alone. It had to be precise. I had to make sure they knew I wasn't some fool to be lied to and discarded. I had to make them understand that I was not going to be played that way, not without consequences. That's when the idea struck me. I needed to document everything. Photos, messages, calendar entries, video evidence if possible. I wanted to make sure that once I confronted them, I'd have everything laid out in black and white. No room for denial. No way to spin their way out of it. I also reached out to an old friend who was good with computers. Someone who knew how to dig into hidden stuff, delete traces, and keep things discreet. I explained my plan and he agreed. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about making sure they'd never be able to lie their way out again. While I was working through my plan, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. There was more to it, I was sure. I started digging further into Jake and Lisa's routines, who they met, where they went. I wanted to know if there were more people involved, more lies hidden in the shadows. My instincts told me that this wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a web of deception, and I was about to pull on every thread I could find. One thing was clear: I was not going to let this slide. No way. They had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and I would make sure they lived with the consequences. The thought of finally confronting them, exposing everything I knew, made my hands shake. But it also made me feel alive again. For the first time since I found out, I felt like I had some control, like I was finally turning the tables. That night, I sat in my car outside her favorite, waiting for her to arrive. I had my phone ready, loaded with evidence I had collected. My heart pounded. It was a sick mix of anger, betrayal, and a strange sense of purpose. I knew what I had to do next. I just didn't realize how much everything was about to unravel faster than I could have ever imagined. The night I decided to confront them, everything felt surreal. I sat in my car, engine off, just watching through the windshield. It was quiet, almost too quiet, like the calm before a storm. My hands trembled as I adjusted my phone, making sure everything was queued up. I had photos, messages, even a recording of their meeting, everything I needed to lay out the truth. Lisa arrived right on time. She looked different, nervous, maybe, or just guilty. Her eyes darted around as she approached the table, quickening her steps when she saw me sitting there. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was boiling. She sat down across from me, trying to act casual, but I saw the flicker of anxiety in her eyes. "Hey," she said softly, voice cracking slightly. "What's going on?" I pulled out my phone, placing it on the table, screen facing her. "Guess you're wondering why I've got all this," I said, voice low but steady. "Think I don't know about you and Jake, or about what you've been lying about?" Her face paled. She tried to slip her hand into her pocket, maybe to grab her phone, but I was faster. I pressed play on the recording I had made earlier, the muffled sounds of them talking at that, her voice soft but unmistakable. "You've got no idea how much I've wanted to do this for a long time," she whispered in the recording. "You're so clueless, he's everything I need." She visibly flinched. Her eyes darted to the side, trying to deny it, but I already had her dead to rights. "You lied," I said, voice raw. "You lied to me about everything. About Jake, about my brother, about your own life. How long has this been going on?" She swallowed hard, her fingers trembling. "It's not what it looks like," she murmured. "That's not fair, you're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I echoed, my stomach twisting into knots. "You've been sneaking around behind my back, lying to my face, and you call that overreacting? Tell me, Lisa, how long has this been going on? How long have you been cheating on me?" She hesitated, then looked away. "Since before the proposal, it's been a mistake. I swear I didn't mean for it to hurt you." I felt my jaw tighten. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair, it was about how deep the lies went. The fact that she'd lied right to my face, even as I planned to marry her, made my blood boil. I didn't want to scream, not yet, but I could feel my fists clenching. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I asked, voice trembling with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. "You've shattered everything. I trusted you. I loved you. And now I find out you were sneaking around, lying, cheating. And you're telling me it's just a mistake." She looked ready to break, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. "Please don't do this. It was a mistake. I was confused and I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything." "Lose everything," I echoed, voice rising. "You already did. You lost my trust, my respect, everything I thought we had. And as for Jake and Mark, those two are just the tip of the iceberg. I found out about your affair with my brother, too. You've been lying to everyone, Lisa, everyone." She looked stunned, like she'd been struck. "Mark, you knew." "Yeah," I said coldly. "I knew everything. Your secret affair with him was the last straw. You thought you could keep me in the dark, keep it all hidden. Well, I've got proof, more than enough to make sure you never lie again." Her face crumpled. "Please, just listen." "No," I interrupted. "You're done. I want you out of my life. I want you to pack your bags and leave. And I want the truth, every lie, every detail laid bare. Because once I'm done, I'm not coming back. You hear me?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll go, just. Please, don't ruin me completely." I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of everything crashing down. I'd come prepared, and I knew I had to act fast. The evidence was laid out, my plan set in motion. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity. As she gathered her things, I pulled out an envelope from my pocket. Inside was a copy of everything, screenshots, recordings, the letter from Mark. I slid it across the table, watching her stare at it with wide eyes. "This is just the beginning," I said quietly. "You've got a lot to answer for. And trust me, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you did." She looked at me with desperation, but I didn't feel any pity, just cold resolve. I watched her walk away, her shoulders hunched, her future broken. Inside, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd done the right thing, I had to. Now all that was left was the fallout, and I was ready for it. The next few days were a whirlwind. I handed over all the evidence to a trusted friend who knew how to handle these things. Someone who understood how to make sure everything was airtight, how to keep it discreet. I told him to wait for my signal. Meanwhile, I stayed silent, kept a low profile, and let the storm brew. Every morning I'd wake up with a clenched jaw, feeling the weight of what was coming, but also a strange sense of relief. I finally had the truth out there, and that felt like a victory of sorts. But I knew better than to think this was over. There was a trail of lies that went beyond just Lisa, Jake, and Mark. I suspected there were more secrets hiding behind the walls of that house, so I kept digging. I watched her social media from a burner account, checked her texts again, and even drove by her favorite just to see if she showed up. Nothing. She was staying quiet, probably trying to figure out her next move. Then one evening I got a text from my friend. It was a picture, just a quick snapshot of Lisa's car parked outside a new house, one I'd never seen before. No explanation, just that. My stomach clenched. She was moving out, fast. That's when I knew I had to act. No waiting around now. I was about to make sure she knew exactly what she'd lost, not just the affair, but her entire life built on lies. I planned my next moves carefully, knowing that once I executed this, there'd be nowhere for her to hide. The plan was simple. I'd confront her, not with anger, but with a calculated, cold assurance that she couldn't deny. I'd show her I knew everything, that I had proof that she was done. But I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, see the destruction she'd caused. The goal wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was justice for me, for the life I thought we had. I set a meeting at her new place, a small, neat house she'd obviously picked out in a rush. I wanted her to see me not as a broken man, but as someone who had taken control. When she opened the door, I was already standing there with a folder in hand, thick with screenshots, messages, and copies of the evidence I'd collected. She looked surprised, maybe even scared. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice trembling. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. "We need to talk," I said, voice low but firm. "You've been lying to me ever since I proposed, Lisa, but I've got everything now, and I mean everything." She backed up a little, eyes flicking to the folder. "Please." "No," I cut her off. You don't get to beg, not anymore. Do you remember that afternoon I proposed? That was real for me. I thought I was finally going to start building a future with you. Instead, I find out you've been having an affair with Jake, and that's not even the worst part. Her face crumpled. It's not what you think. Really, because I have the proof right here. You lied to me to my face about everything. And then I found out you were also sleeping with my brother, Mark. How many lies do you think I can take? She broke into tears. It was a mistake. I was so confused. I didn't mean for this to happen, I swear. I never wanted to hurt you. I don't care what you swear, I said, voice steely. You're done. Here's the thing, this isn't just about the affair. This is about respect, honesty, and what it means to be faithful. You crossed every line I ever set. I handed her the folder. There's everything, screenshots, recordings, the letter from Mark. You can try to deny it all you want, but this is the truth. She looked at the evidence, her face drained of color. Please, she begged, voice cracking. I didn't want to lose everything, not like this. You already did, I said quietly. And I'm done waiting for you to realize what you've thrown away. I want my life back, Lisa. And I want the keys to this house. Pack your things and get out. She nodded, sobbing softly, and I watched her walk away with the folder clutched to her chest. A strange calm washed over me. It was over. The game was in motion and I had won. Not just the battle, but the war. As she left, I felt a strange mixture of emptiness and power. It was like lifting a heavy weight off my chest, but I knew the fallout was only just beginning. I had to prepare for what was coming next. I took a deep breath and stepped outside, watching her get into her car. I noticed her glance back at the house, maybe to see if I was still there. I was, standing across the street watching her drive away, knowing I'd finally taken control of my life again. And I promised myself this: from now on I'd rebuild better, stronger, without the lies. The pain was real, but so was my resolve. Freedom tasted different. It was bitter but necessary. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, calls, and a strange, hollow silence inside me. I had handed over the keys, packed her belongings, and watched her disappear from my life. The house felt colder, emptier, like a shell of what it once was. Every room echoed with memories, good times, bad times, lies, and now they all seemed pointless. I could feel the weight of betrayal pressing down on me, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I kept replaying the confrontation over and over in my head. I'd done what I set out to do. I'd exposed her, got the proof, and walked away with my dignity intact. Or so I told myself. Still, the truth was I was shattered. Nothing prepared me for the ache that came with realizing everything I believed in was a lie. And yet, I knew I had to keep moving forward. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, feeling that gnawing emptiness, until I finally decided I needed some distance. A change of scenery sounded like the best idea. I booked a trip to a quiet coastal town, just me, the sea, and a few days to breathe. I needed to step back, clear my head, and figure out what came next. On the drive there, I kept thinking about the mess I'd left behind. Lisa, her innocence, her lies, her betrayals. Jake, my supposed best friend, who turned out to be just as crooked. Mark, my own brother, who I always looked up to. It all felt surreal now, like I'd been living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But something inside me had shifted. I realized I'd been giving too much, my trust, my love, my future, to people who didn't deserve it. I'd been blind, tiptoeing around red flags that now seemed glaring. If I was going to rebuild, I had to start with myself. The ocean was exactly what I needed. Its endless horizon, crashing waves, salty air. I sat on the shore, feeling the cool sand between my fingers, and let the breeze wash over me. That's when I made a promise to myself. No more letting betrayal define me. No more sacrificing my peace for people who didn't value it. But even in that peace, I knew I'd be haunted by what I'd lost: the trust, the future, the life I thought we had. Still, I also knew I'd come out of this stronger. I'd start over. Better. Smarter. Back home, I set a plan into motion. I went to a lawyer, started the paperwork for divorce, and began the process of healing. I also reached out to a counselor, someone to help me process the pain and rebuild my sense of self. It wasn't just about ending the relationship. It was about reclaiming who I was before all this mess. One night I sat on my porch, sipping a cold beer, and finally let myself feel the pain. It was sharp, real, but bearable now. I looked at the stars shining above and thought about what my future could look like. Alone, yes, but free. Free from lies, betrayal, and those who took me for granted. I realized that revenge wasn't just about making them suffer. It was about making myself stronger, learning to trust again, learning to love again, but on my terms. And I knew that one day I'd find someone who deserved my honesty, my loyalty, my love. Someone who would never betray me. It's funny how life can flip in an instant. One moment, you're on top of the world, and the next, everything's shattered. But the real test is how you pick up the pieces afterward. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about moving forward, carrying the scars, but not letting them define you. So I'm starting over. Not because I want to forget, but because I refuse to let their betrayal break me completely. I'll build a new life, one based on honesty and respect, something they clearly never understood. And I'll do it without looking back. That, I think, is the only way to truly reclaim your life. A few months down the line, I finally felt like I was regaining control. I'd filed for divorce, sorted out the legal mess, and started to rebuild my life. I moved into a new place, one that wasn't filled with memories of betrayal. Each day was a small victory, getting out of bed, going to work, reconnecting with old friends who reminded me of who I was before all the chaos. It wasn't easy, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't still feel some ache deep inside. But I was getting stronger. One evening, I was sitting alone on my porch, watching the sunset turn the sky into a swirl of orange and pink. I took a deep breath and felt a strange sense of peace settle over me, finally. I thought about everything I'd been through, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the anger, and I realized I'd come out of it more resilient than I'd ever been. I turned my pain into a catalyst for change, and I knew I wouldn't let it go to waste. That's when I decided to take one last step in my way of reclaiming myself. I got in my car and drove to her new house, the one she'd moved into after I kicked her out. I've been thinking about this moment for days. I didn't need to say much, just wanted to leave her with a reminder that she couldn't erase what she'd done. I pulled up in front of her house, took a deep breath, and stepped out. From my pocket, I pulled a small envelope and slipped it into her mailbox. Inside was a single note. You lost me, you lost everything, and no matter how much you try to move on, you'll never fully escape what you did. I didn't need to say more. It was enough to make her remember what she'd thrown away, the life she'd ruined with her lies. I watched her come out the next day, reading the note. Her face was pale, eyes wide with shock. She looked around, probably wondering who it was from. But I didn't stick around. I just turned and walked away, feeling lighter than I had in months. That moment marked the end of my journey. I didn't need to hurt her, to destroy her, or to exact some grand revenge. All I wanted was to make sure she knew that I was done with the lies, the betrayal, and the pain. I'd taken my power back, piece by piece, and I was finally ready to move on. Looking back, I realized that betrayal taught me more about myself than I ever expected. It forced me to confront my limits, my trust, and what I truly deserve. I understand now that revenge isn't just about making someone suffer. It's about reclaiming your own life, your dignity, and your future. For anyone out there going through something similar, here's my advice. Never let betrayal define you. Use it as a catalyst to grow stronger, smarter, and more self-aware. Trust is a fragile thing, but your worth is. Take your pain, learn from it, and build something better. Because at the end of the day, the only person who truly has the power to heal you is yourself. And I promise that healing is the most satisfying revenge of all.